Of Parshas Noach, the Torah refers to Noah, as a tzaddik, and said that Noach was a tzaddik tamim haya b'deresav. He was a tzaddik in his generation. Now, what do the rabbis do with this verse? They translate it in one of two ways. Either they say he was a tzaddik in his generation. In other words, that's a compliment. If even in his generation he was a tzaddik, for sure in any other more just and moral generation, for sure he would have been more of a tzaddik. The other rabbis translate this negatively and say, no, only relative to his immoral generation was he a tzaddik and a saint. Relative to any other generation, he wouldn't have been counted as anything. He wouldn't have been anything special. Now, I ask you, if according to Torah is positive and tries looking at things positively, if you have the option of how to translate this verse, why would you choose to translate it as option 2 versus option 1? Option 1 translates this verse very positively, and it makes a lot of sense. He was a tzaddik even relative to his generation. Can you imagine in any other generation? Which rabbis, in their right mind, according to the viewpoint of Torah, to see things positively, would say, you know what, maybe Torah is trying to hint at something negative over here, and say, maybe he wasn't such a good guy. He was only a tzaddik relative to his generation. There must be something positive in the second interpretation that would compel the rabbis to translate this negatively against Noach, because it must have a very powerful lesson towards us. And there's really a two-tiered, very powerful and empowering lesson that we can take from the second, specifically negative interpretation of the rabbis about Noach. Tier number 1 of the explanation. It's known that the flood refers to, Chassidus brings from the Alter Rebbe primarily, brings that the flood represents the flood and anxieties of this world, the turbulence of physicality and all the tirdas haparnasa, anxiety about sustenance, financial worries, all the worries that living physical lives comes with. And the way to survive that flood is by el hateva, come to the ark. But teva doesn't just mean the word ark, it also means word. Come to the words, in other words, to fully enter words of Torah and words of prayer. And what the Torah is then telling us is, in order to survive the anxieties of this world, in order to not be so pulled in every direction in the tumultuous waters of this world, and to be anchored somewhere true, you need to come into the words of Torah and come into the words of tefillah. And one can ask themselves and say, that makes sense for academics. Academics can find solace, can find an outlet, can find their soul in learning Torah. Spiritual saints can find their souls in prayer. But I'm just a regular guy. I'm not someone special. Are you saying that I can also find myself in Torah and I could also find myself in davening? And to this, the Torah is saying, yes, Noach was not such a special guy. Noach was someone like you and me who was just a tzaddik relative to a very immoral generation. His bar wasn't so high. Yet even someone that is just relatively good, even if he's not a big saint, we tell him that when you see the Mayim Rabbim around you, when you see a world that seems to be pulling us in so many directions and is so confusing and just sucks the life out of us, a Jew could replenish himself in Torah, because Torah is not just a book for academics. Torah is a place where the Jewish soul reconnects on its charger, plugs back in, and can replenish itself. The words of Torah, the academics of Torah, is just a medium in order for my soul to reconnect to its God, to its maker. I remember one time sitting with studying with a Russian man and his son, who looked like big bodyguards, don't like showing emotion. And they came to study. One time we were making a study group with people that work, that haven't had the opportunity to learn in yeshiva. And they want to learn the laws of mezuzah. Him and his son, father must have been 50, 60, the son must have been 30 years old. And as they're sitting learning the laws of mezuzah, which doorpost you need to have the mezuzah, how you should put it, how high up on the doorpost, the father just starts bursting out crying. And I remember being taken aback. You look like a very tough guy, and you're not learning anything inspiring. You're learning about the laws of a scroll on your doorpost. There's nothing more dry and legal than that. You're not learning about the meaning of life, the purpose of the Jewish people, anything inspiring or soul-stirring. You're learning laws about mezuzah on a door. Why is that making you crying? Yet the explanation, as we know, is Jews learn Torah. And when a Jew learns Torah, his soul gets stirred. It doesn't matter what topic he's learning. It doesn't matter how intellectually connected to these ideas he is. The Torah is our medium towards connecting to Hashem. And every Jew, even if as long as he's just a regular, decent guy, is able to find his soul and find his connection in the Torah, and is able to connect his neshama, will connect to the neshama of Torah, and he, regular Joe, can find solace in study of Torah, even if he's no one special. So too in prayer, every Jew can find their place in prayer, just like they could find their place in Torah. Explanation or second tier of lessons we could learn from Noach being not such a regular guy. And this one's we need to think about pretty often. What does it take for Hashem to keep a world going? Hashem saw an entire generation that was worth wiping out. The world's not worth having anymore. There's one guy over here who's pretty good. What would you think if God saw you as the only person worth keeping in existence? If everyone else was below you, would God say, you know what, scratch this plan? Humanity's not that good? Or would he say, we have this guy. He's decent, he's good. He does a lot of good things, he messes up sometimes, but then he tries catching himself. He's not perfect, but he's a good guy. Would God keep the world going because of you? And we obviously think, no, Hashem keeps the world going for the saints, for the perfect people, for the big guy. For regular me, no way. And for this, Torah is coming to teach that we had one Noach who was a pretty good guy. He wasn't even amazing, but Hashem said, you have a human who's human and connected to me, at least to some degree, even if it's not perfect. For that, the world is worth keeping, even though there's only one of them and he's decent. And for this, we need to realize, we need to grow in our spiritual self-esteem to see how much Hashem finds our lives worthy and worth it. As long as we're trying to do good things, even if we don't do it perfectly, we can't keep falling into imposter syndrome of I'm such a mess up. All the good things I do isn't worth it because I fall through in bad things sometimes. Look, so did Noach. He wasn't a perfect person. He was great relative to his generation. He withstood some of the challenges of the generation. And Hashem said, for such a person, life is worth it. We say in Tanya, chapter 41, that we need to notice that even though Hashem is so big and so infinite, He focuses His kingdom on the Jewish people in general, the Olav Bifrat, and on Him as an individual. Ki chayav adam lemar, because someone needs to say, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, the world was created for me. And imagine if all of us believed that for 1 second, that the world was created for me, and if I was the only person in existence doing what I'm doing, Hashem would still say, you know what, this whole planet Earth plan is still worth going with, because this guy's here. And he studies sometimes, and he prays sometimes, and he gives charity sometimes, and he works on himself. He's not perfect, but for this was my intention of humanity, and now things are worth keeping going. We'd feel so empowered in our Judaism, life would be so rich and full of meaning, and full of a real relationship with Hashem. And we're not going to think that He looks at us with the left eye, but we will see that He looks at us with the right eye and really actually cherishes what we're doing and finds the world worth it because of it. To close on a quick story. Someone one time had life issues and they were told to go talk to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And they were told if you catch him as he's leaving his house, you're going to be able to have a quick conversation with him of whatever the urgent issue was. So he stood outside the Rebbe's house before the Rebbe went to davening. And he confided in the Rebbe his issue, and the Rebbe stood with him and walked him through whatever the issue was. And it took a good around 10 minutes. And there was 2 yeshiva bachrim over there that were just watching what the Rebbe was doing. They ditched class. And they saw that this man took up 10 minutes of the Rebbe's time. So they went over to him after and said, how could he do this? You know how busy the Rebbe is? He's dealing with all the world's issues, and you just had the chutzpah because of your little issue to take up 10 minutes of his time, and they really made him feel bad about it. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe to apologize and said, I'm sorry for taking your time. To which the Rebbe responded 2 points. First of all, those 2 boys, they shouldn't have been there then, they should have been in class. And it wasn't their place to tell you that. Second of all, says the Rebbe, we know from the Baal Shem Tov, a Jewish soul, a soul, comes down to this world for 70, 80 years just to do a favor for someone else. And who knows, says the Rebbe, maybe the reason why my soul came down here to this world was to do you this favor and to help you out for those 10 minutes in life. Really? The Rebbe who helped the entire world, who helped Israel, who helped America, who helped revive global Jewry after the Holocaust, thinks possibly that his whole purpose of existence was to help one person for 10 minutes? And yes, so says the Rebbe. And we should realize this about ourselves, how important we are, and realize how important every Jew is, and that maybe our souls come down here to do that Jew that we walk by a favor, to smile at that one person that looks like he needs a smile, to give a compliment to that one person that looks like he needs a compliment. It might seem small, it might seem just regular and human, but who knows, that could be the entire purpose of creation of this world. Have a great Shabbos.